Hey, Beau! Why do we love dogs and cats more than we love each other?
So I've come here to Washington Square to answer this really quite personal question. It's actually a question that's personal to all of us. And the reason why it's personal to all of us is because our brain evolved for it to be that way. So like I said, I'm in Washington Square. It's one of my favorite places in the whole world for me. In some sense, it's the center of the universe. And right behind me here, there's the dog run. And right over there is the children's run. So sitting from each other and across the path are the dogs and the kids. And as you know, I have three gremlins, and I've always felt that there is something so fundamentally similar between children and dogs in the most beautiful way. And I've done this on purpose because in fact it's actually true inside your brain. So why do we love our pets so much, and sometimes even more than people? And as I look around, there's another little dog passing, another one over there. The reason is because during evolution, we needed them to survive. We domesticated wolves somewhere between 18,000 to 32,000 years ago. They were essential for our hunting, for our protection, and also for friendship. There's a theory that suggests that dogs were possibly one of the primary reasons for why humans were able to outcompete Neanderthals in that time. But remember, there were four different sort of species of human coexisting, and we won. And one of the reasons why we won is possibly because of dogs. So dogs have their brains have actually interesting a sensitivity to voice that is not unlike our own. Their neurological response to voice is similar to our own. And so there's a wonderful researcher out of Hungary who did this work and suggests that actually that might be one of the reasons their ability to hear is similar to ours. That could be one of the reasons why we have this coevolution, why we were able to domesticate them. Dogs can recognize human emotions through facial expressions. That's not necessarily something they've come into the world, but they've learned to be able to do so. So they can recognize how you're feeling by looking at you. More than that, they can actually recognize how you're feeling by your smell, by how your sweat changes with stress, for instance, how your breath changes with stress. So dogs have been fundamental to our existence for thousands and thousands of years, and it's deep within our circuitry, and it's deep within their circuitry. So given that, what are some of the benefits that we experience both in our brain and our body and our perceptions as a consequence of our pets? A lot of this work is going to be on dogs that I'm going to be reporting to, but because for obvious reasons. So our pets, in particular dogs, they improve our cognitive engagement, our socialization, our physical activity, our walking. Remember, life is movement. Dogs get us out walking, physically moving our body. They also give us a sense of purpose. Remember from previous conversations we've had either on the Lab of Misfits or my personal Instagram at Beau Lotto, that your cells are remarkable. Maslow's hierarchy is not quite right. At the lowest level, of course, we need shelter, we need energy, but your cells need a reason to live. It's remarkable if you think about it. And when we lose that reason, we often lose our ability to thrive, sometimes even our own life. And dogs and pets can actually give us that reason. And all of these can combine to actually decrease the impact of, for instance, even Alzheimer's and dementia. Owning a pet for 5 years or more can actually delay cognitive decline. And it's not just dogs or cats. It's actually been shown that pets, for instance, rabbits and hamsters and birds and fish and even reptiles, that this can actually happen. When you pet a dog, especially your own, it activates your prefrontal cortex. Isn't that remarkable? And your prefrontal cortex is essential for cognitive function. your prefrontal cortex is what you exercise when you meditate, by the way, if you're a meditator. It enables you to look away from the obvious, look away from your reflexive responses. It gives you agency, and that agency, that prefrontal cortex, can increase your longevity. Now, one of the reasons why I'm sitting across from kids over there and dogs behind here is that when mothers look at their babies, there's certain areas of their brain that gets lit up when we measure, for instance, with MRI. Did you know that when mothers look at their pets, similar areas in the brain also light up? Not all, but very similar areas, the amygdala and various others. So the brain of a mother, and presumably a father, would activate in a similar way to when they actually are looking at their children. So it sort of gives credence to the idea that our pets are like our children, that we feel similarly towards them. Similarly, when we look at our pets, even when we pet our pets, we get certain brain chemicals released, hormones, neurotransmitters, peptides. Examples are oxytocin, adrenaline, opioids, serotonin, right? They're released in your brain, but they're also released in the brains of your pets. And one particular important one is oxytocin. Now, oxytocin is essential for binding two people, for bonding. And oxytocin is actually released when when women give birth. So during childbirth or breastfeeding and even sex, oxytocin gets released. Okay, so oxytocin can help ward off depression, right? And because mental well-being influences your physical body, these chemicals might even explain why people sort of who surround themselves with pets and animals actually can live longer, right? Improves longevity. And there's also studies suggesting, and many actually charities are set up for people with PTSD, veterans, for instance, with PTSD. And it's been reported that people with PTSD can actually have far better improvements with a pet than even with drugs, with pharmaceuticals. And also reason why pets, dogs in particular, and cats are brought into elderly care communities, right? Because all of these benefits are going to benefit the brains of those inhabitants. And so what then, given how fundamental pets are to our brain, evolutionary so, immediately so, what do our pets say about us, right? What do they say about us? So one of the things that happens is when you're with your pet, your behavior and their behavior becomes synchronized in space and time. You start behaving like them and they start behaving like you. Now this even happens with romantic couples, but it also happens with your pets. Pets will also, dogs in particular, will take on the stress and behaviors of their owners. Okay? So if your cortisol levels are elevated for an extended period of time, so are theirs. Right? They take on your stress. And they also share, dogs and owners also share similar personality profiles. Okay? So if you're an extrovert, your dogs tend to be extroverted. If you're shy, your dogs tend to be shy. Dogs seem to adapt their personality. Now, dogs have also innate personalities, but they also seem to adapt their personalities to you. And so there is evidence to suggest that dogs and the owners look like each other, or pets and the owners look like each other, okay? And there was a study showing that naive people who are naive to the relationship between a pet and their owner, and again, this study was done on dogs, they were able to predict which owner and which dog belonged to each other to a statistically significant level of accuracy, okay? And so why is this? Why do we actually look like our pets and they like us? Well, it's probably because, of course, we select them accordingly. In the same way we actually select our partners or our friends, and it's because birds of a feather flock together. We like familiarity, and this seems to be true across species. So there are a number of other ways in which dogs, another one passing. Since I've been doing this, there have literally been 15 dogs who have passed with their owners. There are a number of ways in which they improve our lives, and in particular, around uncertainty. Okay, remember, everything you do is an attempt often to decrease uncertainty, and dogs are essential for helping us decrease our uncertainty. And I think it's one of the reasons why we love them so much. Okay, one is loyalty. Dogs are incredibly loyal, and that loyalty, which we so often crave in another person, even in ourselves, by the way, decreases future uncertainty. So that actually makes us feel, it decreases that anxiety. We also have an element of control over our pets, right? Over our dogs. We train them. We train them to behave in a certain way. That ability to train also reduces uncertainty in our life. And we love being appreciated, don't we? We love it when we are appreciated by the people who love us. Well, also dogs love us, and they actually show a level of appreciation that is disproportionate to how we show appreciation of them. It's a sort of symmetrical relationship. They are so good at showing appreciation. And one of the most fundamental needs that you have, that we all have, is that need to exist. Dogs show us that we exist, and what's more, the second level is to have value in that existence, and dogs give us that sense of value in our existence. And so what's more, dogs' emotions towards us are constant. Okay, they always love us. When we come back, they still love us. If we're a bit grumpy, whatever, they still love us. Okay, now we think about our typical relationships, our romantic relationships, and so often people express the idea that they habituate to the person that they're with, right? Their feelings for that person decrease, the sex for that person decreases, right? They habituate. Now, often people hide behind the idea that that's normal, right? That it's okay. It's not actually, it's a choice. There is an element of choice in how you habituate to the person, or whether you habituate to the person that you're with. Dogs don't habituate, right? They continue, and evidence of that is that dogs they have a similar brain to ours in many respects, and yet they don't habituate to us, right? They continue to love us almost even more so as time progresses, right? That demonstrates we could actually also do that for them, and in some sense maybe many of you will feel that, but that's also something you can do with your partner. That you don't is actually more of a choice. So dogs are optimistic. We love things that are optimistic, right? We love to be around things that are positive, right? I've had many dogs in my life, one of whom right now is Monkey, and another one is Shambo, Abby's dog. And they are so optimistic. If you think about Monkey or my other dogs, right? They see a bird over there and they're so excited to try to chase it, right? Never do they catch this bird, and yet as a consequence, they don't lose their enthusiasm for trying to catch that bird. Because why? Because it's the chase, it's the process that the dogs are actually interested in. Of course, they're interested in catching it as well, but their failure never seems to daunt them. They're going to try just as hard every single time, right? Again, yet another thing we could actually learn from our pets, in particular dogs. And possibly the most important reason why we love our pets is because we give to them. We give to them so much, both money, time, interest, desire, need. And one of our greatest needs, one of our greatest ways of getting pleasure for ourselves is the pleasure of giving. Okay? So often in our romantic relationships, we focus on the other. We focus on receiving. In our friendships, we focus on receiving. At work relationships. And yet research has shown, and our own research has shown, that you get so much more pleasure, and that pleasure is more enduring when you give more than when you receive. And so I'd argue that one of the greatest reasons why we love our pets is because we give to them. So I have a question for you. What would happen if you actually engaged in the world, in particular the world, your loving world, the people that you love, your partners, your friends, and let's focus, say, on your partners. What would happen if you engaged with them in a similar way, where you didn't habituate to them, that you focused on giving rather than receiving, that you remained enthusiastic and optimistic in life and didn't habituate to that? What would that relationship be like? Okay? Maybe it'd be a lot like your pet. And so I'll leave you with that thought. Thank you for listening.